Everyone, Professor Torres here. I'm happy to have you back with me in the session. For this session, we will talk about towards the 21st century. Now, before we start this lesson about towards the 21st century, let me walk you back to the different lessons that we have finished in order for us to connect the previous lessons to what we will be listening to right now. So, first, we look at the future of the workplace. We have said that the workplace is now changing in the sense that before, people are the most important assets or the most important resource in the organization. But nowadays, things are changing. There is a divided attention towards the people because of the presence of technology. So we have talked about the technology are replacing some people and that this technology is capable of doing the job, or I would say lessening the manual labor of people. And so we have said that the presence of the robots, the artificial intelligence are, you know, some people would say stealing, but I don't want to say stealing, but they are, I would like to call it a collaboration between the technology through the artificial intelligence or the robotics and, uh, and people working in that organization. And so we need not to be frightened with the presence of technology, but instead we have to equip ourselves with the knowledge on how we will be able to manipulate, to work with this technology. We can never, uh, get away with it because we are now in the digital age wherein technology is present everywhere. We've also seen the diversity in the workplace, and this diversity poses a big challenge to people who will be working in an organization. Why? Because communicating with diverse people is more challenging than communicating with people who are coming from the same race. We have issues related to communication, intercultural competence, and probably aside from intercultural competence, we have to have the confidence in order to really know how to deal with them, how to approach them, how to work with them as part of the team. Because we've said nowadays, we don't care about competition or we're setting aside competition because more than competition, what is more important is to collaborate with people, to do projects together, to put our minds together so we can find better ways, we can find solution, we can create more ideas together, and we can be more productive if there are more minds working together. The more diverse the thinking, the more diverse the people, the better productivity is there waiting. Okay? Now, also, we've taken a look at what's happening in the classroom and we have questioned how learning should be. Based from what you have listened to or watched last week, how do you think learning should be? I am very excited to hear your answer as we meet each other in our Zoom meeting during this week. So, for now, what I would like to share with you is the different issues under the 21st, towards the 21st century. First, we will look back at the economic revolution. Before we reach the 21st century, we've started somewhere. And I would say that we've started in the agricultural age until we reach the final age, or probably the future, which is the conceptual age. We will take a look at that later. Then we will see what is an industrial economy at a glimpse, and at the same time, a knowledge economy. Then we will move on to discuss about the 21st issues and challenges, like issues about financial difficulty or financial difficulty. Then we'll look also at the disparity between the economic status of people. Then we'll also look at the challenges of the physical environment. So with the issues and challenges I've mentioned, we can say that there's a bumpy road ahead. Okay, and the question is, how are we going to reach our final destination? What equipment, what preparation should we have or should we bring as we move towards the 21st century? So come with me, be with me as we look at the topic towards the 21st century. Okay, so what you see is now the economic revolution. The economic revolution started in the 18th century, wherein it started with agricultural age, where where the workers in the farm are called farmers. And then as the economy progresses, from that agriculture age, people learn that they can do more and it can develop their life by embracing the industrial age. And in the industrial age, we've seen the growth of factory workers. Okay, then that is the early part of the 19th century towards the Industrial Revolution. Then we're moving, or I would say we are now in the 20th century, or past approaching 21st century. So in this 20th century, we're looking at the information age, where what is needed in the workplace are the knowledge workers. In a glimpse, or in a short discussion, we have already talked about knowledge workers. But here, we will try to mention again who are the knowledge workers. And then the future is the 21st century. We still have how many more years before reaching the 21st century? And so we're preparing for that. Uh, Visionaries have said that this 21st century will be the conceptual age. Conceptual means the creation of something. And instead of just having ordinary workers, we have concept workers. Okay, so we've seen this agricultural age, industrial age, information age, and conceptual age. Now, let's discuss a few things related to agricultural age. So, as the name implies, we all know that agricultural age is about farming. It's about working the land, planting, maybe taking care of the crops, and eventually harvesting. And people find out, and the workers during this agricultural age are mostly farmers. People make their living by farming. So sometimes most of them are farmers. Others that don't have the land would be working as a farmer to help other people to make their living. And so people find out that they can do more than farming. And so in the 19th century, we move forward the industrial age. This came because of the development of transportation. So transportation is actually something that needs to be done inside factories. So if people during the agricultural age are using animals to plow the field or maybe to go to the field, like they use horses, they use cows, they use carabaos, they found out that they can do more, okay, when they develop machineries that will help in farming. And at the same time, they found out that they can do more work, probably at a farther place, if they have the transportation that will bring them there. And so the industrial age the opened its world to people. So it invited a lot of factory workers to work in the manufacturing plants. Of course, these are machines that are operated by human being. And so these machines during the industrial age cannot work without the presence of people. And so if we look around now, we still have some industries or that practices the employment of a lot of factory workers because they need them to produce, to accomplish the job that needs to be done. Okay? Now, that's why I said now we are in a combination of economies. Like there are still economies within the industrial age, and there are also companies or businesses that are operating within the information age. So later, after this slide, you will see the development of the knowledge of the information age. So I'm reserving it for later. Let's jump up to the future, which is the 21st century. The 21st century is known as the conceptual age, meaning to say, in this conceptual economy, people are not just people who can do work that will help the machine, but they're expected to create something. That's why we say concept, to come up with ideas, to develop something, like to make our lives easier. Like they say, smart living, right? So nowadays, you can see that with the use of technology, things are easier to do. Like before, you need to go to the bus station to reserve for your ticket. But now, with a smart application for ticket reservation, you need not to go physically to the terminal or to the ticket booth, but instead you open the app and you buy the ticket. And that's, of course, courtesy of people who are thinking of finding ways to make life easy. And again, to give you another example, why do you have a smartphone? What is a smartphone? Smartphone originated from what? Like the cellular phone, wherein the idea is to bring the phone anywhere without having that line. Because, of course, if you will be going to another town, how can you afford to bring that gadget with a line, right? So it uses cellular site in order for it to transmit and receive messages. And then they found out that they can make it, you know, perform other functions. Like from the original cellular phone, they came up with a phone that can be used for calling and at the same time for sending messages. And then after that, they also found out that they can use it as a camera. And from then on, there's a lot of application that you can store in your phones. That's why it's called a smartphone. That is courtesy of the knowledge workers and the concept workers who are patiently, um, I would say, patiently and creatively keeps on finding ways, keeps on developing application that will make the life or the lives of people easier. Okay? So that's what we need now. People who can think, people who can come up with ideas. Okay? Let's see, when did knowledge age started? Knowledge age or the information age started in the early 90s. So during this time, expenditures exceeded industrial age spending by 5 billion. And so they're trying to, figure out why is there a lot of spending done during this time. So that year marked year 1 of a new age of information, knowledge, and innovation. They say that knowledge is power information also is power, because the more that you know, the better you can become, and the more, I would say, productive that you will be, because you know a lot. Okay. And also, from that year, innovation did happen. Like the previous example I mentioned, a simple cellular phone became, uh, uh, it evolved, the model evolved until now we have a smartphone. We don't know what will come in the next few years, but we expect, or we should expect, innovation. Where does the expenditure goes? Expenditure goes to the making, manipulating, managing, and moving bits and bytes of information. So, because imagine the internet, imagine your PC. There was a time that the personal computer is only something like a typewriter, wherein you will use this to encode words, okay, form sentences, make a story. But they found out that they can connect information, that they can connect the world. Like, for example, now we don't need to, just simply, we don't need to call, but instead you can go to a social networking site and you can get connected to people, like Facebook, like maybe Twitter, or maybe, people now go to, I would say, TikTok. Okay. So they try to make the data to make it available to more people, manipulate in a sense that they try to see what will be trending. It's used also for marketing, and managing means that each has their own domain, like Google, like Safari, like Naver, and the idea is to move the bits and bytes of information. Like you see nowadays, even though you live here in Korea, even though you're just here in Korea, it's easy for you to get information. What's happening in Japan? What's happening in the United States? What's happening in Asia? We can easily get information. We can easily get updated. The current events happening, or maybe the I would say the dollar exchange, or maybe the temperature. So they invested a lot of money because they see the power of information. So the knowledge age economy is information driven, and it's globally networked. Information driven because I've said you will never be able to come up with something not unless you have the knowledge, not unless you have the information that you need to create something. So, this is not only limited to a certain place, okay, but this is globally networked. That is accessible probably to people who have access to technology, but people who don't have, like those that belong to countries or economies that don't have yet the technology, then they don't know what's going on. Okay, so that's the knowledge age. Okay, so just to illustrate to you the difference between the industrial age. In the industrial age, for them to produce goods and products, they have to use the horsepower, meaning to say they can produce more using the power of the machine, which they call a horsepower. But moving towards the knowledge age, they can produce more by using their brain power. So I appeal to students, I tell them, you know what, don't memorize because memorizing will not help you. But instead, try to learn new things and see how those information, how those knowledge can help you to avail of any opportunity to help you develop yourself and to be a smarter individual. Okay? So, I'd like to share with you a picture of an industrial economy. The industrial economy uh, what's this from the raw materials of the earth, okay, they try to process it, they try to manufacture, they come up with something out of the treasures of the earth. Like for example, the soil uh, can be made for building, maybe, not sure about that. Or I would say the crops can be converted into food that can be preserved, that can survive for a long time. The plants that can be processed and that can be converted into a material or a fabric that people can use in order to keep themselves covered, to keep them warm, to to for them to battle the different seasons. So, what I'm trying to show here is the maximization of the resources coming from the earth, from the land or the soil to, I would say, the resources coming from the sea, like whatever is under the sea, the water, the I would say the stones, everything can be used as long as they can think of ways to make use of that resources. And why do we need it? We need it to progress. We need it to make our life, I would say, simpler and more comfortable uh, as I see it. Okay? Now, the knowledge economy, what resources do they use? The knowledge economy use resources coming from the brain. Now, there's nothing that you can extract from the brain without investing or without depositing something to it. Like, for example, if we will try to withdraw something from the brain, what is there to withdraw? Did you learn English? Did you learn other languages? Did you learn skills? Did you learn, did you practice something that will make your output, I would say, faster and more productive? So the knowledge economy relies on the brain power. Not only the brain power, relies on the resources that you have accumulated in your brain. So without accumulating, in a way, we can call that learning. Okay? If you did not learn something, there's nothing to use in there. There's nothing to bring with you in the workplace. And that's how important investing something on you through your brain. Okay? So because the knowledge economy needs the power of your brain to analyze, to create, to innovate, to think of solutions, to come up with good ideas. And that is only possible if you have more resources in your brain. Just like the application that you have downloaded in your smartphone. If I ask you now, look at your smartphone. Come on, get your phone, okay? Go to home screen and check how many applications do you have, okay? Now, how do you use the application? How does it help you to become more productive if you have that application? The same thing also during when we go to when we look at the knowledge economy. The knowledge economy makes use of the investment that you have in your brain for this to thrive and level up to what we call conceptual age. Okay? Now, so this is the industrial age, and I've said that this is what we are in now, the knowledge economy. So this course is calling you to wake up, invest. Invest in something that people cannot steal from you. Invest in something that can help you achieve your dream, that can help you the job that you want, not only get the job that you want, but keep the job and eventually climbing up the ladder of success. Okay? So these new changes will continue to make new demands on education as the century progresses. What does it mean? So there are changes that we need to know, like the progression of the economy. So as the economy changes, we can say that the demands of the place or the demands that goes with it is different. Like for example, if we will look back at the industrial age, what do you think are the knowledge that are needed by the people during the agricultural age? Probably they know when is the perfect time to plant, when is the perfect time to harvest, what skills do they need to have in order for them to plant, to harvest? Okay, so those are interrelated. The economic age, yeah, the economic age and the skills and the knowledge of the people within that economy. Now, how about in the industrial age? What do you think are the knowledge needed? Maybe let's assume that the knowledge needed is for you to understand how a machine works, for you to know the timing when you have to produce, when you have to work together with the machine, and the skills may be related to how skilled you are in such a way that everything that you produce is something that is of quality and not rejected. Okay? And so, as we change, as the economy changes, there are new demands on education. So, now, 21st century, what is the demand? Again, if we will look back, we said that there's a big demand for people to be digitally literate. There's a big demand for people to know how to think. Okay? There's a demand for people to be lifelong learners. And so, let's put that in place first. And for this session, let's look at the 21st issues and challenges. Okay? Why do we need to talk about issues and challenges? As I always say, a soldier that would like to win the battle and that would not would make sure that he will survive and go back to his family after a battle. They prepare, they get ready, they check what uh, physically they make themselves strong. They also make sure that they have the necessary military weapons that they need if they will be going to a battlefield. Same thing also to someone who's going to the workplace. Oh, I mean, I forgot. Aside from the preparation, you have to see, you have to check what is there to expect in the battlefield. Okay? Now, same also when you do a competitive sports, like for example, basketball. What do you think are the issues that or the things that you have to prepare when you play basketball? You need not only to have the knowledge on how to hold the ball, how to dribble it, how to shoot, but you have to have a very good knowledge of your opponent, of the other team that will be playing against you. Why? Because, of course, knowing how they play will give you an idea how to strategize. Knowing how they play will give you an advantage on how to make make strategies that will uh, be able to defeat them in this competition. And challenges can be like there are things that are not within our control or beyond our control. Like for example, injury during during a sports, right? Or say for example, like a calamity that will happen that will definitely affect the game. Same thing also as a student who is about to graduate who is about to go to the workplace and who are preparing themselves to battle in the workplace. We have to check what is there, not only the workplace, but the environment where we're going to work. So we cannot say, I don't care. I don't care about the season. I don't care about the environment. You have to care because we are all interconnected. And this interconnectedness is really affecting one unit. If it will affect one unit, definitely it will affect the whole system. So let's take a look at the 21st century issues. So the first is the world's global financial, economic, and ecosystem as an interlinked system. A disruption in one part of the world has consequences to economies everywhere. Okay, so it says here that in this illustration, there is the interlinked between the economy, okay, and what's going on. It's connected. The money is affecting, let's say, for example, uh, the economic growth of a country. So, global financial and economic system as an interlinked system. It disrupts one part of the world and it boomerangs or it reflects or there are consequences to economies everywhere. Look at what's happening right now in Korea. Okay? What's happening in Korea? We are all affected by the health issue COVID 19 infection. And as we see, if we do not regulate the movement of people, like if we don't practice social distancing, if we don't practice the wearing of mask, if we don't follow government rules of avoiding crowded places, there is something that happens. Like, the infections, the number of infected people are getting more and more. And because of this infection, most of the businesses are paralyzed. Paralyzed meaning to say some of them are not operating, some of them are halfly operating, and some of them are really losing money as they are directly affected by this virus. I would like to bring you to an industry that is very close to my heart, and that is tourism. We all know that one of the economic sources of Korea is tourism. Korea relies heavily on the tourism, especially those tourists that are coming in to the country, because the presence of many tourists would mean more sales, right? Sales for the aircraft or the airline, sales for the hotel, sales for the restaurant, sales for the souvenirs, sales for other things that they will be buying here in Korea. And because the airport or the Korea decided not to entertain first visitors, they closed the border. They closed it in such a way that there might be people who can get in, but they're limited, not the regular or normal number that they do allow to visit Korea. And so we can see the disrupted operation of the airport. We all know that there are so many people working in the airport. What do you think will happen to them? What do you think will happen to the employees or to the businesses related to tourism? Like, for example, the travel industry, the hotel industry, the food and beverage industry, the souvenir shops, the other shops that sells whatever they can sell to tourists, right? So we don't say that. That's why we say that whatever is happening in the economic ecosystem, because COVID 19 affected the economic ecosystem. And not only here in Korea, but it affects the world's global financial situation because the virus is widespread, not only here in Korea. So people are affected by what's happening, and so we can say that this is an issue that we're facing now. Currently, we have this, and we can never tell what's other issues are we going to face as we move towards the 21st century. Okay? And so, why are we talking about this? Maybe this is also something that will challenge students who are aspiring to work in any of the industries under tourism. What else can I do? If I want to work in the airline, and if the airlines are, letting go of people, they will not definitely be taking in new ones. So, what is an opportunity for me out there after I graduate? That's why we are talking about these issues because we don't say that this will close permanently. It's just a temporary status, it's just a temporary condition that affects the country economically. But definitely, it will uh, it will stand up again. It will go back to its moving level, or it will be a dynamic industry again after this phenomenon is finished. Okay, next, the growing disparity in the world between the rich and poor. So, what is the issue if about the rich and the poor? The issues are social tension, conflicts, extremism, and less safe world. Okay. I'd like to show you this picture, two pictures that I would like you to ponder on. What is my point when I say growing disparity in the world between the rich and the poor? Look at the picture. I'll give you a little time to look at it. How will social tension come in? Okay, social tension can happen if there are two people that feels the same way, but the other one cannot afford to find a solution for what he is feeling. Let's look at an example of a physiological need. A physiological need, which is the need to eat. We all would want to eat, right? But the big problem is, do we have something to eat? So if you will look at this picture here, we have two types of people. One representing the poor and the other one representing the rich. And we say that there is the disparity. Disparity means the difference. So what do we see here? This poor has nothing. This rich has food to be served by his staff. And what else? You look at the clothes that they wear. If you see that it's very different, look at the way, the appearance of the poor and the appearance of the rich. So we can see the difference, the gap between the two. So, where do you see social tension will come in? I don't say that this is true, but this is something that can happen, especially if it's a physiological need like hunger that needs to be uh, given attention. Okay? What do you think this guy will do if this man here will be served the food? Imagine you are the one who is here, and yeah, you're the one who's here. What will you feel? So, the moment that this food is served on the table and it will be open, okay, he will see what the food is, he will smell, and once the man is eating it, he will be salivating for sure. Not because of I would say envy, but because of a physiological something that needs to be given attention, like the hunger. Okay, so the first instinct. What do you think is the first instinct or the first thing that this guy will do? Can you give me some food? Okay, so if you're hungry, you will try to find a way to give a solution to that hunger. What do you think that that person will say? Can you spare me some food? I'm really hungry. What do you think will this do? Two ways, okay? One is to share his food, no tension. Second way is not to share his food because he thinks that that's his and he doesn't feel like giving to other people. Okay? So, if he decides on the second one that he don't feels like sharing and that he thinks that he need not to share, what do you think will be the instinct of this after begging some food, after asking for some food? He will not stop, but he will find a way, okay? Find a way would mean, when you're hungry, sometimes you cannot think well, and the instinct is only to find a way that will satisfy that hunger. He might grab the food that this person is eating. And what will happen? Of course, there will become a conflict. That will create a conflict or that will create a tension. This is a very simple example, but it's just one rich and one poor. But imagine the situation that we have in this world. There are a few rich, but many people who are on the other side of the scale, those who are really poor. Okay? So there will have tensions, there will have conflicts, extremism. Some people would say means that the other one is really getting richer and richer, the other one is getting poorer and poorer. Okay? And then less safe. Why? Because, okay, you don't want to give it to me. I would rather steal from you. I will steal from you. Maybe you've heard of the events happen in Chicago wherein people entered forcibly enter department stores and looted them with goods. Though we don't see the disparity between the rich and poor, but we can see a social tension in there. We can see some conflicts in terms of ideas. Okay? And there are people who are taking advantage of this. And what happens to people who are not involved and who are just passersby? It will be a less safe place for them. Okay? So we see the disparity here. We also see in this picture the social inequality. When we say social inequality, we are looking at the inequality between people. One is someone who can afford to buy what he wants. The other one, I don't know, probably is homeless, as we see the person homeless and nothing, because I think what the person has in this car is all the things that he has, all his possession. But this is just a grocery cart. And this is not just a picture. This is a reality that exists. I think we can say that Korea has this picture also, and other parts of the world has this picture. Okay, how is this connected to your ambition? Well, you know what will happen? If you will not equip yourself with the things that you need to have to go to the workplace, you will become jobless. It will be harder for you to find a job. And probably time will come that you will lose your job even though you get one if you're not good enough. And so this is the equivalent. Okay. So if you become poor but there's an opportunity, that's your choice. Because as long as you have the physical power, you have the brain power, I don't think you'll get hungry. Because you can always do something that will give you enough food to eat, enough food on the table, and more, and maybe more than that. Okay? Let's go to the challenges to our physical environment. Why do we need to look at the physical environment? Why do we need to care about physical environment? Why do we have to uh, know the issues about sustainable development? Because the physical environment is also the place where we live. And if something happens to the place that we live, we will be affected by it. Now, one issue that we have here is global population has risen from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 7.7 billion in 2019. So, how is this connected? What is the issue about the population? Anyway, you will say, "Oh, Korea is not facing that issue. Instead, Korea's issue is the other way around." Okay, yeah, but the thing is, the more people we have in Earth, the bigger damage will have to the Earth, especially if people will not care. They will not care for the environment. Okay, so let's go back to these two who are with cards. Okay, so here we see that this guy here, okay, he has a lot of money. And so his money has a lot of power to purchase everything that he needs. Not only he needs, but everything he needs, wants, and probably thinking of wanting. Okay? And this one also has nothing. And so if you have nothing to consume, there's nothing to go to the trash. But because some people now are earning more money, they have more money to spend. And when they have more money to spend, the more they consume the earth's material and energy resources. Let's give an example. So, what do you think will happen to the boxes here, to the bottles here? Some are recyclable, others are not. And so, if it cannot be recycled, then the earth will just be not consuming it, but instead it will fill or it will add more to the trash that we throw on the earth. Okay? Now, what happens to the energy resources also? If people will just live in a simple place, like a one room unit or a small house, compared to someone who is just alone and living in a five-bedroom apartment. Okay? So, what do you think will happen to the energy consumption? The one living in a five-bedroom apartment needs to consume more energy compared to someone who's just living in a small room. Why? Because he has to turn on his light, and assuming that he can afford to have a five-bedroom apartment, probably his appliances are better. Bigger air conditioning units, bigger refrigerator, and that means bigger consumption of energy resources. And so, we are depleting the environment in a sense that if a resource can be shared by five, but it's only consumed by one, then we can say it's not fair. But what we can say is that consumption of the Earth's material and energy resources will definitely harm the Earth. Okay? So, increased consumption of resources is causing climate change. Okay? Climate change, that's an issue. Few years ago, it's still an issue now, and probably an issue also in the future. Climate change and other threats to the natural world and its global life support system. So, who lives on the earth? Who will be affected by this climate change? Who will be affected by the threats like the wildfire, like the landslide, like the heavy rains, like the floodings. Who? Who will be affected? Naturally, those who are living on earth. And these are people, and these people are us. Okay? Are us. So imagine you have already settled in your work, you're making money, you bought an apartment, you suddenly, then you suddenly experience like a flash flood in your area and it wiped out your place. See, all the effort, all the money that we invested in that property was gone together with the flood. So, if we are taking care of ourselves, if we are trying to live smartly by consuming what we only need and by trying to uh, be, I would say, frugal in our living, then we can have a more livable world, right? Okay. So I think you need to see this one. So the consumption, it starts with the use and then how you dispose it. And then, but also it starts with the production. I'm sorry. Starts with the production. Then from the production plant, it's transported to people at different parts of the world or of the country, and then they disposes it. So this is an environmental impact model. How will the consumption of goods can affect can affect the environment, and what impact can it give? Again, these are the issues that we're talking about here is climate change and the threats to the natural world and what will happen to the residents of this world, which are us. And so, these are the issues that we talked about: overpopulation, overconsumption, increased global competition and interdependence, melting ice caps is an effect of a climate change, the war is an effect of the disparity between the rich and the poor, the threats to security is also somewhat related to economic or the disparity between the life and the poor. So, if we look at these issues, most of it are issues that needs to be aware of, are issues that if we are conscious, we can be wiser in living this world, and we can definitely be part of keeping this world a better place to live. And so, with all of these issues, we can say that there is a bumpy road towards this 21st century. There's a lot of things that we will be facing as we travel towards the road to the 21st century. And so, the question is, how can we survive? How do we equip ourselves towards this journey? I think one way or one key to the economic survival in the 21st century is education. Education is the key to economic survival in the 21st century. I'm giving you a picture of what is there in the 21st century. I'm giving you a picture of how you need to prepare in the 21st century and what you can do to survive in the 21st century. And that is to be educated, to continue learning. So, with that, I say again, education is the key to the economic survival in the 21st century. So, I all invite you as you learn from the different majors that you have enrolled, as you probably work and at the same time study, that you have to engage yourself in a lifelong learning. Lifelong learning meaning we have to learn whatever we can learn so that we can prepare ourselves towards the 21st century. Okay, I hope you learned something from this simple presentation. And if you have questions with the issues, with the concerns that I have talked about, please write it down, bring it to our class, and let's talk about the issues in there. So, thank you for listening and see you again in the next video presentation. Bye!